Talking about racing, everyone would think about speed and thrills. Their coolness, explosion, and burning are not beautiful at all. But compared with the idealism of the former part, Ford v Ferrari, that I want to talk about today is much more realistic. This is a movie adapted from a real story, telling about the founders of the Ford GT40 Ken Miles and Carroll Shelby, or you can say the story of the fight between Ford and Ferrari. In the early of the 60s, the most powerful company in the car industry, Ford, was devoured by the expanding Chevrolet Impala. The head of it, Henry Ford II, was forced to close a production line, intended to announce a company reform and an innovation. Whereas a different Italian car production company, Ferrari, won the first prize in Le Mans 5 the fourth time, becoming a symbol of victory. But because it invested too much in racing cars, which made the company heavily lose-making. According to the chief executive Yakica's suggestion, Henry Ford II intended to merge with Ferrari, which was on the verge of bankruptcy. It was unexpected that he was humiliated by Enzo Ferrari. What made him go nuts was not being told that he was just a pig, but the sentence,
"He said you're not Henry Ford. You're Henry Ford II."
The smile on Ford II's face gradually became stiff. There was a saying that went, "Better die with honor than live with shame." The second attitude burst out. He demanded that no matter how much it cost to manufacture racing cars, produce the best engine and find the best races.
Goddamn greasy wop, 100 feet deep under the finish line in Le Mans.
Talking about the best racer, apparently, Yakica came to Carroll Shelby to talk. This man used to be the best professional racer in America. Because of his heart disease, he had to retire early and became a racing car designer. After perceiving Yakica's purpose, Shelby refused in no time, because he knew too well about the 24-hour Le Mans tournament, which was a huge challenge to both the racer and the car. Until when he heard Yakica say,
"Blank check." What I'm saying is, you can't buy a win, Lee. But maybe you could buy the guy who gets you a shot.
The winner Shelby was talking about was his old friend, Ken Miles. 45-year-old Miles was a former soldier who took part in the Normandy battle. Despite his great racing skill, he was independent, arrogant, and weird. He often offended other people with his lack of social knowledge, so there weren't any companies wanting to invite him. Miles opened a repair shop to earn a living. Sometimes he took part in small races to satisfy his passion. When Shelby wanted him to cooperate with Ford, Miles refused with no hesitation. He loathed the bureaucratic style of Ford's high-level staff. Cooperating with them meant having to take orders. If he couldn't race as he liked, what was the meaning of it? His love for racing made Miles blind to other people. It was also due to this love that his limits had a chance to change. Shelby knew that, so he chose a good day to drive Miles to the airport at night. What appeared in front of them was a high-class racing car imported from England by plane. Miles' eyes immediately lit up. He drove around and around the airport. Seeing Miles' excited emotion, Shelby knew that he succeeded. That was how they started collaborating. They test drove the car many times to optimize its function. But while Miles was working hard to practice for the Le Mans, the high-level staff started making a fuss. It turned out that the press conference held by Ford before that, Miles said that the internal structure of the new car was trash and suggested some ideas, which made the vice president of Ford, Leo, be filled with hatred. So this time he was fishing in troubled waters. He told Miles to do as he liked, in a messy way, which was unsuitable for Ford image, and constantly put pressure on Shelby. Finally, Miles wasn't qualified to go to France and join the race. And apparently, Ford lost. Because of losing the chance to compete this time, the two old friends weren't happy. Miles and Shelby were like elementary students wrestling on the grass. Miles' wife was standing aside watching the drama. She waited till those two big babies were tired, then brought drinks for them, telling them to hug each other to reconcile. Having dealt with the friendship, what was left was Ford's high-level staff. Shelby pushed Ford II into the racing car and drove like crazy. After a speedy and thrilling round, Ford II, who was a big brother in the car industry, but has never been inside a racing car, started weeping. He now could directly understand that racing cars were not for everyone.
You let Ken Miles race Daytona, and if he doesn't, Ford Motor Company gets full ownership of Shelby American.
Shelby bet all of his properties to get a chance for Miles. Miles, of course, wouldn't let his friend down. In Daytona, he won the first prize, reaching the speed of more than 7,000 in the last round. Not only did he protect Shelby's properties, but he also got qualified for the Le Mans tournament. But on the first day of the competition, two monsters of the car industry, Ferrari and Ford II, both came to the scene, but Miles suddenly had disadvantages. Seeing all the other races starting, Miles had to drive regardless of everything. The race had just started when there were increasingly more cars getting upside down. Finishing the first round, number 21 Bandini of the Ferrari team left the opponents behind, while Miles hadn't appeared on the race yet. In the first round, he had to drive into the station to repair the car door. The audiences were taken by surprise. His teammates struggled to close the door. Miles used the hammer to smash. The car door was immediately closed. Miles started to speed up. 3 minutes 34.3 seconds, 3 minutes 31.9 seconds. Miles didn't stop breaking his record, quickly reaching the top 10. Seeing the situation getting better, Ford too excitedly sat inside the helicopter having dinner with a beauty. And Ferrari stayed at the scene till night. Until now, the race had been continuing for 8 hours. Because the rule was that 2 people taking a turn to drive, Miles had time to rest. But the engine of the car was getting very hot. Almost every year, it was raining on the Le Mans tournament. But the races didn't slow down because of the rain. After a night racing, there were more and more races leaving the race. The race was now a deathly fight between number 1 Miles from Ford and number 21 Bandini from Ferrari. Those two were highly spirited. The longer they raced, the more excited they got. But the cars had reached their limits. Bandini retreated and Miles was finally successful. He almost won the first prize, but at the last minute, the vice president of Ford tricked him again. He wanted Miles to slow down, waiting for other races from Ford.
Wouldn't it be great if all 3 Fords lined up across the finish line at the exact same time?
Forcing a racer to slow down was ridiculous. Shelby didn't mind objecting to the employer and didn't want his old friend to endure the unfairness again. In the second last round, Miles again set a new record with 3 minutes 30.6 seconds. But when he was inside the car enjoying the happiness when defeating the opponent and surpassing his limits, Shelby was threatened by Leo.
Well, I will get you banned from the SCCA and the FIA.
As if Miles could feel it, he looked at the empty highway in front of him, then took off his glasses to look at the rearview mirror. There was no one neither in front of him nor behind him. But Ford GT40 was created by both him and Shelby. He couldn't ignore his friend's situation. Eventually, Miles chose to slow down, waiting for 2 other Ford racers to cross the line together. But it was a pity that because of the rule, among the 3 expected races, the starting point of Bruce McLaren was farther, so he was the only one who wins. At that time, Shelby and Miles found out that they were deceived by Leo. When they grabbed the winner in front of other people, Ferrari, after experiencing a sleepless night, observed everything and bowed before Miles. However, many cars that Henry Ford too used, he wouldn't have the fighting spirit as Ferrari. Finally, Shelby, the one who was beside him, was the one who understood him the most. They walked across the crowd, hiding their efforts and fame. As a movie about racing, Ford v Ferrari can't miss the thrilling racing scenes. Racing in the morning, racing at night, racing in the middle of the rain. But this isn't a simple movie about speed and action, but it tells a story about the encounter between reality and dream, and people don't know what to choose. If it hadn't been for the unreasonable high-level staff's demand, Ken Miles would have been the first man in the history to win Sebring, Daytona and Le Mans tournament in the same year. 50 years later, today there still isn't anyone who can gain this victory. It can be seen that it is very hard to achieve. What makes people feel sorry about lies in here? In a driving test not long after the race, Ken Miles didn't make it out from a burning car. He disappeared forever in the fire with the love for racing and the reminiscence of his family. He no longer had the opportunity to gain this victory. Miles seemed to lose in business, but the compromise between him and Shelby was unexpected to Ford. Only like that could he continue his racing career as he liked. The winner isn't the only noun for success. Compromise doesn't mean losing. Compared with mere physical success, knowing who you are and what the most important thing is more valuable. Like Romain Rolland have said in Michelangelo and other stories, in this world, there is only one kind of heroism, which is when you have realized the truth about life, you still love it.